Hi and welcome to Seen and Heard. My name is Allison Tristao and I'm the Community Field Representative at Western United Dairies. Today we have on the Director of Environmental Services, Paul Sousa, to give a summary of the board update that he gave at the last wood meeting. So let's get into it.
Hi folks, hope you had a great week. It was a little bit of mixed outcome in our dairy markets, with the Class 3 space losing some ground, but the Class 4 space gaining. On blocks and barrel cheddar, we ended the week lower. For blocks, we lost just shy of 8 cents, but barrels losing almost 19 cents, down to 178 and 160 respectively. Over on the Class 4 side, however, butter rang the $3 mark, price we have not seen for quite some time. That was up almost 15 cents for the week. And non-fat had a good showing as well, up to 117, about 3 cents gain for the week. The markets really spent most every day trying to digest two big reports we got this week. We kicked off Monday with the milk production report for August. And the number was a little better showing than expected. We were down just 0.2% for the month, with most expectations thinking we were going to decline about 0.5% to upwards of a percentage point. So a little bit stronger output. The Midwest did not get hit as much by the heat as most expected. And interestingly enough, USDA left cow numbers unchanged, which seemed a little strange given such elevated slaughter numbers, but that was the data. California was down 3.7% year over year. Remember, a big deal of that was just the fact that last August was such a solid output. We had a big number to beat. I suspect September will be a little bit more neutral in that regard in terms of a year over year comparison. Then Tuesday morning, we kicked off another global dairy trade event. And this time, both whole milk powder and skim milk powder made some good gains. We saw China back with a little bit more aggressive buying, taking some more volume. We'll want to see if that continues into the next auction before we can feel confident that they're probably back. But in any case, we took the increase as a good note, and it definitely helped our Class 4 market this week, as noted. Looking forward, futures were kind of up and down most of the week. Again, Class 3 losing, Class 4 gaining a bit. If you're looking out in 2024, there are some pretty decent numbers to manage your milk price risk, in particular on the Class 4 side. So please reach out if you have any questions. Next week, we do kick off with a cold storage report on Monday. We'll get another read at where our inventories are sitting as we head into the holiday period, which is just around the corner. Hope you have a great week. Please reach out with any questions.
Yosemite Farm Credit is the farmer's choice for agriculture financing. As a farmer-owned cooperative, we are dedicated to serving our neighbors in the agriculture community with financial products and services tailored to your operation and backed with the relationship you can trust. Whether you're purchasing real estate, making improvements to the dairy, or wanting to purchase or lease equipment, we're here to help our members prosper. Visit our website at YosemiteFarmCredit.com to find a branch location nearest you.
Did you know that you can turn your dairy manure into cash? Bennett Environmental is offering above-ground dairy digesters at no cost to you. These systems can also remove nitrates from your lagoons to help you comply with Water Board regulations. Our proven above-ground technology will generate income for your dairy into the foreseeable future. Because we truck the renewable natural gas off-site, your dairy can profit regardless of your location. Bennett Environmental, turning your wastewater liabilities into sustainable assets. Learn more at bennett-environmental.com.
So today we have on Paul Sousa. How are you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. Yeah, we just had a board meeting, and as usual, like to come on and inform our members of what I told our board members.
Definitely. So can we start with the Air Resources Board? We'll dive into the trucks topic.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. So there's quite a few regulations on trucks. The Air Resources Board is really trying to get at emissions from trucks and improvements from trucks from a greenhouse gas perspective, in addition to regular air quality. And so it's about 15 years ago, they adopted a truck and bus rule. That rule has basically required that all trucks be 2011 and newer at this point. However, there are some trucks 2010 and older that are still allowed to be used under a low use exemption. However, that exemption is limited to 1,000 annual miles. And what I've gotten recently is one of our members came to me with a letter from ARB that their odometer reading on their low use truck was being audited. So they had to submit a photograph of that odometer reading with a picture, including in the picture the letter from ARB, so that the ARB knew that photo had been taken after that dairy received the letter. And so this dairy did that, submitted it on time, and then got a letter saying that they were getting a $10,000 fine. I went back to ARB and said, "Hey, we met this requirement." They said, "Well, the two crossed in the mail, or email and snail mail." They submitted that fine right at the close of the deadline. And so what I want to let members know is, if you get one of these letters from ARB auditing your mileage on your low use exemption truck, please take that seriously and respond to it quickly. And I am here to help you. If I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. So that's one thing on trucks. Another one I wanted to mention is that there is a new rule called the Clean Truck Check. It's basically a smog check for big trucks. So not like pickups and things that already have a smog check, but like, big Peterbilts and even Ford F-450s and things like that with a 14,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating or bigger. It requires an annual smog check for trucks in agriculture. That's only once a year. But for other trucks, over-the-road trucks, it's going to be ultimately 4 times per year that they need to get a smog check. This does replace the periodic smoke inspection program, or PSIP, that has been ongoing for a while. However, this is tied to DMV registration, like we're used to with our cars. In order to be able to register your truck with the DMV, you are going to have to take the test and pass the test. There's a lot of information on the ARB website, and I am going to be putting additional information in our weekly newsletter, the update. So watch for that. There is a registration requirement this fall from October through December. ARB is going to open up a online database that trucks must be entered into in order to report the smog inspection results. And there's also a $30 per truck fee associated with that. They are doing trainings for that about how to enter your truck, and I will be taking those to help members out if members want help with that.
So ARB released the LCFS 2023 proposed amendments. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So kind of an interesting thing. The document was called the Standardized Regulatory Impact Statement. I was not familiar with that document, but it's a standard state document. This statement is required for regulatory changes that will have an economic impact on California businesses and individuals exceeding $50 million per year. These LCFS amendments were calculated by the Air Resources Board staff of costing regulated entities up to $10.4 billion with a B, annually between 2024 and 2046. So well in exceedance of the 50 million requirement to write this regulatory impact statement. And it went to the Department of Finance for their approval. If it gets the Department of Finance approval, then ARB will be releasing a formal rulemaking package on this proposed rule. So this is, all proposed at this point. The main thing that this document does is it changes the fuel carbon intensity reduction target from 20 to 30% by 2030. So when LCFS was put in place, the 2030 target was a 20% reduction in the carbon intensity of transportation fuels. And we've actually been ahead of that target. industry, fuel industries have been meeting and exceeding that target. And so ARB felt that they could raise the bar up to a 30% reduction. This will increase the demand for LCFS credits and strengthen those prices. If you own a dairy digester or have one on your dairy, this will increase the revenue that you get from the dairy digester. However, there's some caveats to that I'll get to later. Also changes the biomethane delivery requirements to the Western gas grid. We've had dairies all over the country putting in digesters and utilizing the California LCFS program for revenue. And that will come to an end unless they truck the gas all the way to California or to the Western gas grid. You'll no longer be able to build a dairy digester in New York and be able to easily capture California LCFS credits. The document also anticipates a shift in the use of dairy biomethane from being used as a fuel as it is now directly as renewable natural gas or compressed natural gas in trucks to being used as hydrogen for fuel cells. And so there's a process there. You'd have to convert the methane to hydrogen, but that is doable. And so that's just something that they anticipate in the regulation that will be happening. So we may see a shift in the end use of the fuel produced by dairy digesters. However, the most important thing for dairy in this document is that it proposes to phase out the avoided methane crediting for dairy. The document states that dairy biomethane is not a selected fuel in 2040 and beyond, meaning that dairies could no longer be eligible for LCFS credits. There are potentially other credits, producing electricity or just natural gas for other uses. But if this regulation is adopted as proposed, the most lucrative use for this gas at this point, the LCFS, would not be available to dairies starting in 2040. And that's kind of interesting because that kind of goes against the state's greenhouse gas emission goals. Dairy is doing a great job of meeting its goals. And as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. And so, climate change apparently is not that important because dairy is not going to be allowed to participate or contribute to the solutions to that or to be, rewarded for its contributions to meeting the state's and the governor's climate change goals.
So if we could switch gears over to CDFA, you talked about a livestock enteric methane emission reduction research program. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yep. So that program, the acronym is LEMER-RP, which is kind of interesting. These government agencies are always coming up with interesting acronyms. Last year, the CDFA got $10 million towards enteric research. And so they are putting up $9.5 million of that for enteric research, and they are out for phase 2 applications. They asked for applications in phase 1 or pre-proposals in phase 1. They selected 19 of those, have been invited to come back and apply for phase 2. And so we will see where this goes. It's in the process right now. Folks are preparing applications to submit. But one of those applicants, the Almond Board of California, reached out to Anya and I with a proposal they have, and that is of feeding almond hulls that have been fermented with a specific yeast to dairy cows to reduce enteric methane emissions. They've done this in the lab, and they've had promising in vitro results. Look like a 96% reduction in enteric emissions in the lab, and they are completing an application right now to do an animal study to feed this to animals. And there's some benefits to this in that we're familiar with almond hulls. We're familiar with fermented feeds on our dairies, and so it wouldn't be anything magical or unexpected. And so looks like there may be other options, kind of natural options and things that we're familiar with for enteric reductions. But that research will be ongoing over the next couple of years, and I'm sure we will keep you posted on that.
So what is the update on manure methane funding?
Yeah, so the application period just closed August 28th, and that gave Kyle and I a lot more breathing room. We completed and submitted 8 applications between Kyle and I. We were busy with those. It was great to have his help and partnership on those. In this round and the next round, there's going to be 2 rounds with equal funding. There was $21 million available for AMP and about $11 million available for digesters. And so again, this round that just closed in applications and a round that's supposed to happen next year, that is going to be the level of funding available. In this round, there were 53 AMP applications submitted requesting over $36 million. And again, there was 21 million available. And 28 Dairy Plus applications requesting over $33 million. And you'll remember Dairy Plus is a new program that came from the California Dairy Research Foundation application to the USDA Climate Smart Commodity Program that is being administered by CDFA. And so that's great to be able to have that additional funding there. And then 17 digester applications requesting over $24 million. Awards are expected in December. And like I said, with another round next year. So if you want to apply for the AMP, digester, or Dairy Plus programs, I would say the time to start is now. Start having conversations, start figuring out what you want to put on your dairy, what works best for you, what would help solve, the issues that you have on your dairy. And I would be happy to talk to you about that and help get that process started.
So the last thing we spent time on talking about the board meeting, CV salts history. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, CV salts, it's been around for a while, but it's starting to have some deliverables and that are going to affect water quality regulation and dairy specifically. So I kind of give a history to the board. We have a lot of new board members that may not have heard this. And I think it's also good for our members to know this is going to be a major thing in the future here. CV salts is an acronym for Central Valley Salinity Alternatives for Long-Term Sustainability. And it was formed to address the impact of salt buildup in the Central Valley. I studied irrigation in college and talked about ancient civilizations that were wiped out due to salinity buildup due to irrigation. And the Central Valley is certainly one of those places where that has the potential to happen, especially the Tulare Lake Basin, which is usually a closed basin and water doesn't leave that. And so salts tend to build up there, except for this year, which was very unusual. But the issue still continues that salts tend to build up in arid places that are using irrigation. And so CV salts was developed for that. They are conducting a 10-year prioritization and optimization study on salt. This study is moving along and there may be some things out shortly on it, but it's on a longer track than nitrate. Nitrate was originally not included in CV salts, but it was added due to being a pressing issue. Several brought it up that, hey, we should be dealing with the nitrate issue because it's more acute and more pressing at the moment. And so I'm going to focus on the nitrogen aspects of CV salts for the rest of this conversation on this. So industry, including dairy and others, recognize that groundwater standards could not be met with the current technologies. It was around 2006 that this process got started. I remember being there for the first meeting that they held to kick this off. And so the solution was to provide industry with additional time to meet water quality standards in return for providing safe drinking water to those impacted by nitrates. This is a win-win for everybody. Industry got something, and those folks that are impacted by nitrates got clean water as quickly as possible. This model was followed a regulatory framework from the Santa Ana Regional Board that had previously adopted a similar regulation. So this it will provide more time for industry to develop the needed technologies while getting safe drinking water to those that need it. Many, included Western United, supported this process, including financially. Western actually shared the cost of being at the table with Dairy Cares in the beginning of the process with CV salts. This effort is funded by water quality permit holders, including irrigated ag, dairies, food processors, municipalities, and basically anybody else that holds a water quality permit paid into to hire consultants to get this process through. And a lot of those consultants had worked on the previous one adopted by the Santa Ana Regional Board, and so they had some experience in that. The concept was to form local nitrate management zones that would provide safe drinking water in local areas and work on their local nitrate issues. The zones were divided into 3 priority areas, priority 1 and 2 areas, and unprioritized areas. The priority 1 areas were Modesto, Turlock, Chowchilla, Kings, Cahuilla, and the Tule groundwater subbasins. The priority 2 areas are Yolo, Eastern San Joaquin, Delta Mendota, Merced, Madera, Tulare Lake, Kern County, parts of Kern County, West Side South, and the Pozo basins in Kern County. The priority 1 areas got their notices to comply in May of 2020, and so they've been underway and have been producing works and efforts on that. The priority 2 areas just got postcards that they will get their notice to comply in December. And the notice to comply is the official regulatory letter from the Water Board that kicks off this process. So if you got a letter from the Water Board or a postcard recently, and you're in one of those priority 2 areas, that process is just about to get started. The nice thing is that the Central Valley Dairy Representative Monitoring Program, or CVWR, has been handling compliance with the nitrate management zones for dairy and livestock operations, ensuring that dairy families are represented in the management zones by having local dairy farmers on boards and attending meetings. So there's nothing to worry about. If you got that postcard, it says you need to make a decision and you need to decide which permitting route to go, and you're going to have to do some things. If you're a member of the CVWR, all of that will be taken care of as streamlined as possible. And so these management zones have a couple of requirements. First, they had to submit an early action plan. And this plan included testing domestic wells and providing replacement drinking water to those who had water that did not meet the nitrate standards. And that's being done, and that's ongoing. They actually had to start that process as soon as they submitted their early action plans. Those were reviewed by the Water Board. But even before the review of the Water Board, the management zone submitted the early action plan and had to start implementing it immediately. If the Water Board had comments, then the management zone had to make changes to it as they were already on the run. Another requirement was a management zone implementation plan. This estimates nitrogen loading in the management zone for each industry and provides long-term solutions. These were due to the Water Board in the first week of September. The Water Board has received those and posted them up on their website. These plans will have an impact on how water quality is regulated, and dairies should be watching for those changes. Dairy was specifically mentioned in the management zone implementation plan and the loading coming from dairies. And so we think this is going to have a shakeup of how water quality is regulated and maybe even some media attention on this. So there's some challenges coming up and some changes in water quality regulations. I do want to circle back to the funding that's available through CDFA, the AMP program, or the Dairy Plus program, NRCS, and their EQIP program, including the funding coming from the Inflation Reduction Act. There is funding out there to help align your dairy with some of these things. The board members asked some questions like, what are some of the solutions for these issues in the management zones? And what we're looking at, a major one, is implementing a whole farm nitrogen balance. And that is looking at the nitrogen that's generated by your cows in their manure, looking at how much of that you can safely use on your cropland, and then exporting the remainder of that. That's going to be the biggest target that gets us, a long way down the road towards solutions on this. So, if you can run pipelines to other fields that you have nearby to apply lagoon water to those fields, be able to spread that out more, or high-tech things like vermifiltration, which is funded by the Dairy Plus program and AMP, where the lagoon water is sprinkled over a bed of worms that denitrify that nitrogen into nitrogen gas in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is 80% nitrogen gas, and so that would not be a problem. Or more advanced solid separation to get more of those solids. And I'm not talking about our regular solid separation, but things like using polymers to pull more of those very fine solids where more of the nutrients are out of the lagoon water to be able to get those on a truck and export it off of the dairy. And so that's what I have. That's what I reported to our members. And if you have any questions on this, feel free to give me a call at the office. I'd be happy to talk to you about any of these or other environmental issues that you may have questions on.
Thanks again, Paul, for coming on the podcast, and thank you to those who are listening. If you would like a notification when a new episode releases, you could subscribe to the podcast. Have a good week.
Pacific Gas and Electric is here to remind you that signs keep you safe. Sections of our natural gas transmission pipeline travel underground and beneath agricultural land. For the safety of you, your family, and your employees, pipeline markers are placed to indicate the approximate location of the pipe as a reminder to use extra care. Removing a pipeline marker creates a serious safety hazard. To have additional markers placed or report damaged or missing markers, please call your PG&E account manager or our agricultural customer service center at 877-311-3276. To learn more, visit www.pge.com/agsafety. Remember, signs keep you safe.
Are you tired of hearing that the main way to save water is fallowing? Are you tired of seeing articles about how alfalfa and corn waste water? At Common Good Water, we combine the best-in-class subsurface drip system and precision crop management services, including pest control. Our verification program qualifies for public funding, and we want to help you continue farming in California. Contact your groundwater sustainability agency and ask how you can work with Common Good Water. Visit commongoodwater.com.
Thank you to the Western United Dairies generous business sponsors, the Morning Star Company, Holt of California, Farm Credit Alliance, PG&E, Arata, Swingle, Van Egmond and Goodwin Law Offices, Yosemite Farm Credit, F&R Ag Services, Moss Energy Works, California Dairy Magazine, Bennett Environmental, and Common Good Water. We appreciate our sponsors and thank them for their continued support. While Western United Dairies respects the varied views of our guests, please note that the opinions expressed in the Seen and Heard podcast may not necessarily reflect the positions of the Western United Dairies Board of Directors or our sponsors. If you would like more information on how to sponsor Western United Dairies or this podcast, please send us an email at info@wudairies.com.